WXII 12 News at noon starts right now.
The results are in. We have team coverage this afternoon on the local, state, and national level, answering your election questions, including Donald Trump projected to become the 47th president.
It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this great?
Donald Trump is returning to the White House, according to both AP News and NBC News. It's a history-making moment for many reasons. Trump will make history as the second candidate elected to non-consecutive terms.
Now, this is also the first time a convicted felon is president, and the first time since 1892 that a defeated U.S. president has avenged his previous loss. We'll break down what this means in a moment, but first, your local news. Now, North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein has been elected the state's next governor. Projected results show the Democrat defeated Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Stein was ahead by double digits in the polls leading into Election Day after a CNN report alleged that Robinson had made racist comments on a pornographic website.
Stein ran on his record as state attorney general, specifically his work closing North Carolina's rape kit backlog. It had been one of the largest in the nation. In his acceptance speech, the governor-elect says the people of North Carolina chose hope over hate.
To build this brighter future, we must put aside our differences and work together. We must reject the politics of division, fear, and hate that keep us from finding common ground. We will go further when we go together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, but as North Carolinians.
He never mentioned his opponent by name last night. He also urged legislators to work on bipartisan efforts. Experts we spoke with say Stein's biggest challenge will be helping people in western North Carolina to recover after Hurricane Helene.
Now, right after that seat, the second highest office in North Carolina is the lieutenant governor.
Democrat Rachel Hunt is projected to earn the spot, beating Republican Hal Weatherman. The lieutenant governor presides over the state Senate, but only votes to break a tie. They also sit on several state boards. The job is also viewed as a stepping stone to higher office.
New at noon, we are hearing from Mo Green, who clinched the superintendent of public instruction seat.
The projected winner beat his Republican challenger Michelle Moreau with 51% of the vote. Our Aaron Burnett kicks off our team coverage live in Greensboro.
Aaron, what is he saying?
That's right. He says he's humbled and grateful for his being elected. He thanked his supporters and his staff, saying he's ready to enact a bold new vision for North Carolina public schools.
The things that we're going to be focused on are the things that I outlined in our strategic direction and plan and vision. Those things include focusing on certainly academic achievement, but also character development for our students as well.
Elected superintendent-elect has 15 years of experience in education. He was previously superintendent of Mecklenburg and Guilford County Schools. He also led the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation in Winston-Salem. And across the Triad, school leaders are chiming in with support. In Davidson County, Superintendent Gregory Slate says he's looking forward to working with him.
He is a student's first leader. And I know here in Davidson County that we will work closely with Mr. Green.
Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools Superintendent Tricia McManus sent us a statement saying, in part, he is a champion for all students and for public education. I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish in the next 4 years. Live in Greensboro, I'm Aaron Burnett, WXII 12 News.
All right, Aaron, thank you. Now, in the race for North Carolina's Attorney General, Democrat Jeff Jackson is the projected winner.
In his acceptance speech last night, he said he looks forward to being a public servant to North Carolina.
What most people are looking for in elected officials is a simple set of values: honesty, decency, integrity, being a basically reasonable person who actually cares about other people. I firmly believe that's the way forward. It isn't a slogan, it isn't a faction, it isn't outrage. It's simple, straightforward public service. That's how I plan to do this job, and I can't tell you how excited I am to get started.
Jackson is a lawyer with experience in the state legislature and Congress. It is 12:05 this afternoon. Let's get a check on our forecast.
Yep, meteorologist Dave Aiken joins us now. Dave, looks like there's some clouds in the sky right there behind you. What can we expect today?
Yeah, we've had a few clouds around the area. We had some fog earlier this morning that's pretty much lifted out, and there's a couple of breaks in the clouds, but it's still mostly cloudy out there looking out over Greensboro. But everybody's fairly dry at the moment, which is okay, and temperatures, well, we're warm once again. We're into the low and mid 70s already at this hour. 75 in Burlington, 74 High Point, and also in Mocksville at this hour too. Back out in the mountains, temperatures pretty mild there too. 69 West Jefferson and 71 at Boone at this hour. Visible satellite shows once again a lot like yesterday, where we've had clouds in over portions of the Piedmont and back out over the foothills too, but more sun kind of broken out down over eastern parts of the state, down towards the Triangle. A little bit more sunshine there. As far as shower activity, there's been a couple of showers, sprinkles back up over the mountains, but that's about it. We may see a few more showers develop as we go on into later this afternoon, and especially as we get on into later this evening. So we'll keep our temperatures into the 70s for highs today, a few passing showers, and it's kind of muggy out there at this hour too. A muggy afternoon. Rain likely as we get on into the evening and the early part of the overnight. Thursday we'll get a front to move through late, and we'll get a chance for some late showers with that as well. We're also tracking Rafael, which is a hurricane. It could become a major hurricane before it hits over Cuba later on today. We'll talk about its track and the upcoming weekend forecast in just a little bit.
Thank you, Dave. The 45th president is now poised to become the 47th president after results from Wisconsin came in just before 5 o'clock this morning.
Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to address supporters later today. NBC's senior national correspondent Jay Gray has more from the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
Well, the campaign for former, now future President Donald Trump has shifted from a campaign to a transition, as he is now President-elect Donald Trump. The 45th president will now be the 47th president, in a win that had been billed leading into Election Day as one that would be tightly contested, that these two campaigns were neck and neck going into Election Day, and that we may not know the results of this for several days. I think in any discussion now, the day after, we have to start with the idea and acknowledge that many of those polls, many of the analysts, they missed it this time. They were just wrong. This was a dominant win by Donald Trump, one that saw him take most, if not all, of the battleground states. You know, both campaigns had said that there was no clear path to the White House without a win here in Pennsylvania. He, of course, won this state. He won Georgia, North Carolina as well. And when those three swing states were moved to the Trump side of the ledger in the early morning hours, that is when he came out at his victory rally in West Palm Beach, Florida, to talk with supporters.
Every single day I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve.
So again, the president-elect Donald Trump, his vice president-elect J.D. Vance now forming their transition team. We have not heard from Vice President Kamala Harris at this point. She was holding a rally at her alma mater, Howard University in Washington. Did not speak to that crowd last night, but did say that she would address the nation along with President Biden at some point today, sometime this afternoon. Her campaign saying that this will clearly be a difficult speech and one that they believe may be emotional as well. That's the latest from here in Philadelphia. I'm Jay Gray, NBC News.
Jay, thank you. And we did just learn from NBC News saying Kamala Harris will address the supporters and the nation today at 4 p.m. So, of course, we'll stay tuned for that. Now, key to Trump's success was winning over North Carolina voters.
Our Jackie Pascal spoke with locals about their reactions.
Looking on social media today, it's as it's been the entire election cycle. Some people very happy and excited that Donald Trump is the president-elect, while others are extremely upset. I heard both sides in person today.
No, I'm just shocked.
It shocked me a little bit.
I was shocked. I was disillusioned. I thought we'd moved past this. Oh, God. I thought I'd moved past this as a country.
Those who voted for Kamala Harris for president, emotional over her loss.
I just felt very uncomfortable. I'm scared. Why would you vote for him? I just want to know. I really wanted to ask people.
And so we did.
Because I knew that he could lead the country in the direction that it needed to be led in.
They're going to be making more money, not spending as much at the grocery store, and I think life's going to be good.
Their reasons are the big talking points Trump reiterated at every rally here in North Carolina: the economy,
We will fight, fight, fight.
and immigration.
He's awesome. I mean, he's a fighter. I mean, I went down to the border and did border patrol when I was in the military too, so I feel strongly about it.
Those same policies are the reason Harris voters say they are concerned,
I think his main agenda is revenge.
as well as with reproductive rights.
What about me as a woman? I'm just so confused, like what's next?
Tamesia Kelly, born and raised in North Carolina, says she was not surprised her state went for Trump.
I'm like, dang, I was depending on the other states, I guess.
While Holt Preston Duggan says we are a reflection of the country.
I think it's a huge smack in the face, a reality check, how the country feels. Yeah, I mean, they're way off in left field, so.
As for Mary Gallagher,
I'm always happy.
But especially on her 96th birthday today, she says she's feeling hopeful.
I pray that whoever would be elected president would do a good job and that the country would get together and be peaceful.
For WXII 12 News, I'm Jackie Pascal.
Jackie, thank you for that report. Today, the international community is reacting in various ways to the election. While we wait to see whether his leadership changes any international relations, Trump vowed to end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours of taking office. It's something Ukrainians fear would be on Russia's terms. Trump was also a strong critic of the North Atlantic Military Alliance, and he has pledged to end Israel's conflicts. Protesters sprayed orange paint on U.S. Embassy signage in London today in response to Trump's victory.
Tossing things into break now with a look at how some local counties voted. Here's Forsyth County. And next, this is Davidson County. And then Mecklenburg County, which houses Charlotte. And here's a look at results from Wilkes County. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Commitment 2024.